pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Be you the mean hombre that's a hankering for a heap of trouble, stranger? Well, be ya?
I be.
I'm giving you 1 second to draw a gun.
How's that, Chunky?
Say, that's a right smart picture you got there, partner. You know, I'm fair to middling with a pencil myself. Look at here. Quit looking over my shoulder. It bothers me. There. How's that?
It stinks.
Why, you fool?
The pod bay doors are open. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I am your host, Doug Heller, film critic and film historian for TalkMovieToMe.com. Here as always, with my stalwart buddy that makes sure that I don't go out into the street and get shot. Jerry Dean Roberts, film critic for ArmchairCinema.com, ArmchairOscars.com, and OverThinkingOscars.wordpress.com. What's up, Jer?
You know who's in town? Jimmy Ringo. 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 That's this whole movie.
If you watch... yeah.
That's this whole movie.
It's a lot of just saying the characters. The Gunfighter from 1950.
Directed by Henry King.
Henry King, starring Gregory Peck. With
good performance, by the way.
Great performance. Good supporting cast by Carl Malden and who played Mark?
It was an actor I'd never heard of.
The Marshal.
Yeah.
I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. Millard Mitchell.
Yeah, Ellen Corby's in it.
Millard Mitchell was the studio head RF in Singing in the Rain.
Okay. Ellen Corby is in it. Grandma Walton. The
Helen
guy
Westcott.
who... I forget his name, but the guy who plays the bartender at the beginning. That's Charles Foster Kane's dad in Citizen Kane.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Verna Felton is in it.
Yeah.
She plays like the town matriarch, kind of.
She's
the lead old biddy.
She worked a lot with Walt Disney. She was the voice of the Queen of Hearts, and also the Good Fairy in Cinderella. This is a fully packed movie.
It is, and so.
But very, very simple. There's not a lot to it.
There's not a lot to it, and for a movie called The Gunfighter, it's really interesting that I think by the end of the movie, only about 5 shots have been fired, and none of them in a traditional Western gunfight.
Yeah, no.
Only one of them is a person via person, and that's at the beginning, and it was in a bar. And it was just some jackass.
Let's just say this is a movie about a man who has been canceled.
Yeah.
If canceled culture existed in the late 19th century, this would be it. Because Jimmy Ringo, I keep wanting to call him Johnny Ringo. Jimmy Ringo...
That's because of Johnny Guitar, I bet.
Right. Jimmy Ringo is a notorious gunfighter.
Right.
Right up there with Billy the Kid.
Wyatt Earp and all that.
Wyatt Earp, yeah. I think his legend is a little bit bigger than it probably is.
Well, he's one of those that when their legend precedes them, so do the lies that everybody else has told about them.
Right.
That's their
stories get
legend.
bigger and bigger.
Right. And I think, what was it? The one woman said, he's killed 50 men, and he goes, it was probably closer to 10.
Yeah.
Uh, like,
But there's a reason, if you notice, because he comes into town, and the whole town goes crazy.
yeah, because he's like a celebrity.
Yeah.
He's walking into town, everybody wants to see him.
What happens is he comes into town, and I don't remember what he's doing there, but
He goes to that town specifically, on purpose, because he knows that his
is he looking for that girl?
wife, ex-wife,
Yeah.
or whatever their relationship had
Estranged
been,
wife.
and his child that he's never seen.
Right.
And he knows about the kid.
Mhm.
He wants to give everything up and be a person.
Mhm.
And he's tired of this life. He's tired of going into a town and having some greenhorn kid say, he doesn't look that tough to me, and end up getting killed.
Yeah, if
Because
you
that's
think
been
about
his life for 10 years.
if you think about Gene Wilder in Blazing Saddles, where he was he was a famous trick shot, he was a famous gunfighter, and he said every prairie punk with a gun wanted to take on the Waco Kid. It's exactly the same thing. The only thing he doesn't get shot in the ass by a kid.
True.
But give him time.
Mm.
But he comes into town and everybody just flips. Everybody just panics because they think there's going to be a bunch of gunplay.
Right, because they are laboring under the misapprehension that he is just a bad dude that goes around, shoots people wherever he goes.
Just because he can.
Yeah, right. And the truth is, he's a kind, gentle, congenial person that really...
He's Gregory Peck.
He's Gregory Peck. I mean, up one side and down the other.
When somebody asks him about some incident where he killed somebody, there's always a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something. He's like, well, I had to.
Yeah. It was him or me.
It was him or me.
It was literally a life or death situation. I didn't start it, and I wanted to walk away from it.
And my God, how many kids are in this town?
Oh my God. There are more kids in this Western than there are in every other Western of the 40s.
More kids in this movie than Boys Town.
Listen, I actually really like the fact that there's kids here, because I went from this, and then I started prepping for a couple weeks from now, and I watched High Noon for the first time in decades, because I'd had it only on VHS, and I finally bought the Blu-ray for our episode coming up, and they talk about how he made it all safe for them. And how they can raise kids there now. Ain't a single kid seen in the entire movie. This gives an impression of a town that has turned the corner, that is growing, that wants to be recognized.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be recognized for lawlessness.
Right.
So when Ringo comes into town, all they want is for him to get out of town.
Right.
Just, if you're here, get your drink, rest your horse, and get out.
Well, I think also this movie takes place kind of where Unforgiven takes place, when the West was turning from, was starting to break away from the stuff of myths and legends. This still prevailed. Yeah. But it was kind of, a real place. It wasn't, it didn't feel like, it didn't feel like Red River.
Right.
And I love John Ford, but
Red River's a great movie.
Red River's a great movie, but it is a movie with a capital M.
Oh, very much.
But it should also be said, this movie was made at a specific time too, because this is 1950. This is just this is just after World War II, when westerns were starting to look less heroic
Right.
and more. It was starting to get into a noir territory.
Right, right. This is when things started turning and westerns became the stories of anti-heroes and uh,
Yeah, watch Winchester 73.
oh,
That's a good one.
God, I love that movie. Just this humanizing of
Hmm.
the people of the West and saying, yeah, you can't be the good guy
Hmm.
that always kills the other guy.
Right, and
Like,
remains heroic.
right, you're Wyatt Earp, you're a marshal, but you're still kind of the bad guy.
Hmm.
You know, it's like,
That's where
um,
you get a movie like 310 to Yuma, you
exactly.
know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is also
and
pretty
that's where you
good.
get this.
Um, so he and the marshal Mark is an
Mhm.
old friend of Jimmy's.
Yeah.
Um, and he gave up the life 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
And he's living a good life.
Mm.
He helped clean up this town. They were aware of his past, but he put it behind him. He's helping Peggy, which is Jimmy's girl. I don't really know.
Hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
they ever got married or not. Um,
I don't think they actually say.
they never do.
Oh, when we were talking about, by the way, when we were talking about the cast, we should mention Richard Jekyll, who's at the very beginning of this movie, and he's so young, he looks like he just got out of high school. Richard Jekyll, I mean, he was in everything,
Hmm.
and he's he's kind of the one that gets this whole thing started because Ringo comes into the bar, and he's the prairie punk who wants to, you know,
Yeah. What's his name?
he
Hoke?
Hulk,
Hunt.
yeah,
Hunt.
Hunt,
Hunt
yeah,
Bromley.
yeah.
Which, if there is a more kind of a white, snooty, upper class name than Hunt Bromley,
Yeah, yeah.
like it sounds like he should have been on the country club, not
No, no,
on
no.
the range.
That's the kid. That's the skinny kid who shows up later. I'm talking about the kid in the bar at the very beginning.
Oh, the first guy that gets shot.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The kid that walks up to the bar and he keeps calling him names and just kind of starts
Mr.
goading him,
Mr. Frazzlebottom.
Mr. Frazzlebottom. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, you just got out of high school,
Yeah, yeah.
and you get the sense that that's the trajectory in every single stop
Yeah,
that he makes.
exactly.
That he's got to deal with this. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not a kid, it's an older guy. If
Mm-hmm.
it's somebody
Right.
that wants to have tattooed on their name, he's the guy who finally stopped Jimmy Ringo.
Right. 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 Right.
You know.
And it's also you need to mention there is a ticking clock here.
Yeah.
Because that first kid has three brothers.
Yeah.
One of which is the skipper.
It's the skipper,
Um,
Alan Hale Jr.
Yep. uh, and
Spent his career. That man spent his career chasing his old man and never quite got
Never
that kind of respect.
ever got it. No. Well, because his father was more talented than him.
Well, I'd say he probably had more opportunities.
Probably.
Probably
Too.
had better opportunities,
Yeah.
but
So these three brothers take off after, right? He's being chased by these three brothers now, and he gets the upper hand on them. Takes their guns and their horses and tells them, just walk back to town. It's about 3 hours.
Mhm.
And he goes off in the opposite direction. And they're like, well, where he's going is just as far away from where we've been, so it'll take us 3 hours to get there. It'll take us 3 hours to get to the other place. Let's go after him.
Yeah.
And he figures that they're on their way,
Mhm.
So there's this time that's running out, and they're going to be there by 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a
Mhm.
damn early movie, and he's drinking
Yeah.
whiskey at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean,
Well, I want to say something about that because people always talk about how much, because everybody's always tossing back whiskey in these movies and, and all of that. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the 1880s.
Mhm.
Water and milk will kill you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty
Just
much.
water is for horses.
Water, if you're going to drink it, you've got to boil it first.
Right. Right. Same thing with milk.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, you had to. It's the same thing that they in ancient times, the Bible and all that. They're always drinking wine. And it's like, oh, there's a temperance movement. It's like Jesus drank nothing but wine, because if he
Mhm.
drank the water, he would die.
Well, you remember there was that Chris Rock bit where he said, why some religions don't allow pork. He's like, well, you know what? Back then they didn't have freezers. You didn't have refrigerators.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
ate pork, it would probably kill you.
Mm-hmm. They didn't know about internal temperatures and
Right. Right. They didn't know about germs.
Right.
So I mean, that's why. And you go back and you start learning about our founding fathers. They were sloshed all the time.
Oh, they were booze hounds like to the nth degree. They were Mad Men times 10.
Right.
Like,
Right. And so yeah, so this was probably, I hate to say it, probably the healthiest thing you could probably drink.
Yeah. I mean,
You know.
coffee though. I mean, he does drink
coffee,
coffee, but that's boiled water.
But that's boiled water.
So he's in this town. He knows they're coming. He wants to see Peggy.
And he gets trapped
He does in this bar.
run by
because-
a very young Carl Malden.
Oh God, I've
Which
never
his-
seen him younger. Ay.
His face filled. Let me tell you something. His face filled out, but that nose is still the same.
Oh yeah, that. I have a feeling that they thought that was his head before he grew a little bit.
You know what? If it's just if you're my age and you were introduced to Carl Malden through the American Express commercials, and you saw the nose first, that's all you think about.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking about when you think Carl Malden, because it's the first time you see him in this movie, he's behind that bar, and that's the first thing you see.
Yeah, one of my first movies for him was Patton, so I've always
Yeah.
identified him as
It's
Omar
Omar Bradley. Yeah.
It's my whole life.
Didn't he win the Oscar for that?
No, he won for Streetcar.
Okay, see, I thought he won for that. Okay.
No, he
Maybe
won.
wrong.
He won supporting for Streetcar Named Desire.
He was nominated for Patton.
Yes, but
Okay.
he only won the one. For
And he
Streetcar.
acted till the day he died.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
And he died in his 90s.
yeah. He stayed very active for a very long time.
And he did everything.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just the classic. I mean, and I don't think he would have had a career now
No,
because
because of the nose.
because his looks were so unusual.
Yeah.
But I also think he came off the stage too,
Mhm.
and he was respected, and a lot of actors in this time really had to pay their dues on the stage before they moved to film,
Right.
and a lot of actors didn't want to do film
Mm-mm.
because stage you can move around a little bit, you can hone your craft, and you can film. You have to hit your mark.
You hit your mark. You don't have performance after performance after performance to get the
Mhm.
character down. You don't have, which is actually why it's funny. The same year, when Judy Holliday won Best Actress
Mhm.
over Betty Davis was pissed off because she's like, well,
Betty Davis-
she was on stage honing this character. Of course she's going to be really good at it. I didn't have that opportunity. She shouldn't have won.
Two women in their 50s, Betty Davis and Gloria Swanson, nominated with this child,
Yeah.
Judy Holliday, and she wins the Oscar. She gives a great performance.
I mean, it's
in
Born
that.
Yesterday. I mean, it's
Yeah.
she's phenomenal in
Yeah.
that. And let's face it, Betty Davis won her fair share.
Yeah.
Gloria Swanson.
She won 2 Oscars.
Yeah.
I mean,
She was one of the best. But this, I love, I love how confined yet wide open this movie is. Like,
I was noticing, and this is more along the lines of how the movie as the movie goes along. This is a production from start to finish. It's a production with a capital P.
mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this is a criticism, but it is a Hollywood production.
Oh, very much so.
You can see the seams.
Well, I mean, it's Henry King, and
Yeah.
you know, he was
It was a studio
He
director.
was a studio director. He was good, but he was a studio director. He went to work, he did his movie, and he went home.
You're not seeing a lot of you're not seeing a lot of naturalism,
Right.
a lot of realism.
Right.
You're seeing a lot of very New York actors with cowboy hats.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay,
Yeah.
you just came out of the borough.
Right.
You just came out of Queens.
Right. Right. So
and they put a shirt on you and a cowboy hat.
Right. It's kind of the it's the opposite of in Hail Caesar, when they were taking the Western guy and tried to put him into sophisticated comedies.
Right. Right.
Aaron Aldenreich. But yeah, I love that this progresses. This is a man who's tired.
And is probably not really the same person he was 10 years ago.
He's definitely not the same person he was.
Or at all, because you have a feeling that through this thing, this reputation that he has ballooned all out of reason.
Right, and he can't stand it.
And if anybody sat down and actually talked to him, you know, they might see, okay, he's not as big a tough guy as you happen to think he is.
And he's a genuinely nice
he
person.
Yeah.
I mean, I love one of my favorite scenes in this movie is in the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
When he's there, he's locking up the guy that was going to shoot him from the window across the street from the
right,
bar.
because the guy, he killed his son.
Well, no, he didn't, though. He thought that he did.
He was there.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't there?
No.
Okay.
He goes into the room, and he says, well, you killed my son. And he goes, well, what was his name? And he says his name, and he goes, oh, I don't know that name. And he's like, well, you've probably just forgotten from all these kills. And he goes, no, I never heard the name. I was never in that town. I didn't kill your kid.
Yeah.
What proof do you have that I did? Well, I just know you did.
Yeah,
so,
I love that.
So then he just grabs the gun, he takes him down, and he locks him in a jail cell for his own protection.
Right.
But he walks out, and the Biddy Patrol comes in.
Led by Alan Corby.
Yeah. Mistakes Ringo, doesn't know what he looks like. So they're in there trash-talking him, and he's kind of being the voice of reason, but also not disagreeing with them. He's like, oh yes, he's terrible, he needs to be run out. He knows he needs to leave.
Yeah.
But I love that he's like, well, why don't we give him till 10:30, and then if he doesn't leave, then he can get arrested or whatever. And like, I think that's sensible. Is would he leave? And Mark's like, well, why don't you ask him? It's like, oh no.
He's in there. You go just ask him.
He just talked to you. He's the one that suggested it. Oh.
But you can see also, and this says something about Gregory Peck as an actor. He's different to everybody.
Yeah.
Because he's different with Peggy, he's different with Mark, he's different with Hunt Bromley, because as Hunt Bromley comes in the door and starts just kind of shooting his mouth off.
He's just, look, I just don't want anything to do with you.
Like,
shut up and I won't have to shoot you.
But you can see his defenses go up. He's trying not to be the tough guy. He doesn't want to be the tough guy.
No. So I love that he makes himself seem underhanded. Because he's just sitting there whittling on a stick with a little knife, and he puts his hands under the table, and
Mhm.
he says, "Well, I've got a gun pointed at your stomach, so if you go to try to do anything, I'm going to shoot you."
Right.
Like this dishonorable, we thought you were better than that, but then he just brings his hands up and he just starts cutting away at his again.
Yeah.
like, like I just don't want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
um, it's that tiredness. It's
But
that
it's the daily routine
right.
that he has to go through.
He's so just tired of it.
And everybody in town is in the street, and
Yeah.
the kids are in the street. The women are in the street. Everybody's in the street. I guess wanting to get a glimpse of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. It's a cancel. It's a sort of cancel culture. They don't want to. He's a man who has this reputation, and they don't want to listen to reason. They don't want to reason this out because it would break their perception of him.
Well, I would actually challenge that. I would say if they went to Mark and found out that he had been Jimmy Ringo's friend, and then they're like, "We don't want anything to do with you. You've lost your job as marshal and all." That's canceling.
Hmm.
Because
Well, everybody wants him out of town.
it's a good person that they're like, "Oh, this bad thing is, well then you're just terrible and we don't want anything to do with you." He rides into town with a bad reputation. He's
But
not
how
canceled,
much?
he's just bad.
But how much of the reputation is real, and how much of it has been ballooned up by these people?
And they don't care. They don't know. They hear the stories and the stories sound romantic, so they get thrills off of them.
Well, a lot of people in the cancel culture do the same thing. It's like they like to balloon up certain things, say, okay, I've heard something bad about him, and don't confuse me with the facts. So,
No, sure, but if I always kind of look at cancel culture like somebody is really good and then they do
mhm.
something, or people find out that in their past something happened, and then they're like, "Well, you're not good anymore, and we don't want anything to do with you, and you are now gone."
Yeah.
Jimmy Ringo was never held up in a place of honor to come down and be canceled from.
Yeah.
He started on the bottom.
Mhm.
So
And can't
they
seem
just
to redeem himself.
they didn't cancel. They didn't want him there in the first place. If they had
Mhm.
wanted him there and then been like, "Oh, now there's people coming and there might be a gunfight," nope, we're done. We don't want you here. That would be canceling, as I see it.
It is interesting that we're talking about this just at the moment that Bill Cosby got out of jail,
Yeah.
which is a painful sentence to say anyway.
But the fact that he got out, yeah.
Yeah. But um, it was just interesting. I'm watching this, and that's all I could think about is like he got out of jail, and people were just kind of gnashing their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see this movie, and Ringo's rides into town, and people are just gnashing their teeth,
Mm-hmm.
and that the reputation that he has is just
He's a mythological figure that people never think that they'll actually meet
or see.
or see. So it's easy to believe these stories
Right.
because they don't know him from Adam, or
Mhm.
and he is an entertainment figure.
Mhm.
But nobody wants that kind of entertainment to come to their front door.
And some of them would like to be able to tell their grandchildren, I saw Jimmy Ringo.
Right.
I saw Jimmy Ringo, 40 odd years ago.
He passed through this town,
Yeah.
going through. He got a drink at the bar, and got his horse.
12 feet tall he was.
Yeah, exactly.
Shocker hair, red like the fires of hell. Pistols blazing, shooting everything. Women were ducking, children were running.
Yeah, it's
No, he came into town with a satchel under his arm, got a shot of whiskey. That's what he did.
all he wanted was something to eat. He wanted breakfast. He wanted some coffee. He wanted to rest his horse, feed and water his horse, and get it rubbed down, and then go away after he talks
Yeah, but
to
that
after he
doesn't.
talks to
Yeah, but
Peggy.
that doesn't make as interesting a story.
Oh no, absolutely not. So I love. I saw this movie.
I saw it 2 days ago.
Well, so did I, but the first time I saw this was probably 20 years ago. And I just, I really love just how how much it calls into question the concept of Western heroism.
Hmm.
What is a hero? What is not a hero? Is the lawman the hero? Sometimes, but not always. Um, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
it
It
really
reminds me. Yeah,
it paints a picture, a more realistic picture of the West.
I don't know if you were around for this, but do you remember a long time ago they used to have the Time Life collection,
Yes.
Western heroes?
Hmm.
You know, shot 47 men. One of them just for snoring too loud. That's Ringo. That's Ringo's reputation.
That's the reputation. Yeah.
Right.
What he really
It's
is
just a guy who wants to settle down and
he's
get
just a
married.
guy that wants to go around and live his life, and he's not
Hmm.
allowed to because people have made him famous.
Right.
He doesn't want the notoriety. Or he did.
Yeah.
When he was younger,
It
he
did at one
did.
point, yeah.
He sought
It's long
this.
since passed
Right.
away.
He
It's
sought this reputation, and once he got it, he realized how bad it was. That's why I love at the end when Hunt Bromley shoots him in the back.
Mhm.
He's dying, and he says, I don't want to press charges.
Mhm.
I don't want anything to happen to him. I want everybody to know that you're the one that killed Johnny Ringo, and now every kid from here to, from country, the whole country is going to be looking for you to try to take down the guy that took down Johnny Ringo. And
You have
this is
just
going
earned
to,
the
yeah,
reputation.
you just earned a reputation that will ruin your life and make you miserable. Have
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Lots of luck.
He's basically just, you fucked up and now you're going to have to live with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get you off easy by letting you get hanged now.
Mhm.
You go get shot by some punk.
Right. Right.
Which I
It,
like, but it also then continues the circle of violence because then somebody's going to go after whoever shoots Hunt, and somebody's going to go
somebody
after
will go
him.
after the person who
It,
shoots
it
him. And,
continues to go, whereas if they had just hanged him, it would have ended right there.
yeah.
But ending the cycle of violence is a contemporary thought and
Yeah.
not a thought of specifically the 1880s, but also not the 1950s.
Right.
If you did something, you had to pay for it in
Right.
spades. It's that whole
Sometimes whether you did it or not.
yeah, yeah. And so Ringo is punished for living his life.
Yeah.
He
He's
didn't
punished
live
for
it,
his reputation.
he didn't live his life wisely, and now he has to deal with the consequences.
Hmm.
And the way that he just desperately wants to talk to Peggy.
Hmm.
He wants her to see that he now doesn't want to be doing this. He wants to take her and Jimmy Ringo Jr.
Hmm.
and go north, get a ranch, or go to California, go to the Pacific Northwest, get away from his reputation, and live a simple life.
Right. Well, I'll say this. As much as I enjoyed it, I did say, it is a Hollywood product. The movie does, you have to admit, the movie does make the same point over and over again.
Oh, consistently. At least it's a short movie, though.
It's an hour and 24
Yeah.
minutes.
If it were 2.5 hours of just, I want to
God.
get away from this, and I don't think I would have liked it, but
It's a brisk, and like I say, it's a brisk hour and
The economy of the
hour and
story,
24 minutes,
the economy of the story, the really
and of the
and
characters.
of the characters really make this as good and watchable as it is.
Right.
Because the pace never really slows down.
Yeah.
It kind of builds. You would kind of think, well, it's just a little. It's a lot talkier than most other things.
It's a lot talkier than most westerns. Most
I
westerns just want to get the guns out.
Yeah, I tend to go for talky westerns, as you have noticed.
Well, and I'm also fascinated because being such a Hollywood production, did you notice how clean everybody is?
Well, yeah, of course.
You take a movie like the one we're going to talk about next week, where everybody is filthy. Everybody
Oh my
has
God,
a
you can smell everybody from Barbarossa from your
right,
house
right.
through the screen. Like they are putrid.
They spend 95% of their lives outside, and they probably have a bath once a month
If
if they're lucky.
probably a full bath, like sitting in, taking off their clothes once every 6 months or once a year.
And because a bath was a process.
Hmm. Well, because you had to
Um,
heat the water in like
and fill it
kettles
up
and
by
then just fill it
buckets.
up in buckets, and that takes time, man.
And you had, and it's expensive. Bathtubs are expensive.
Hmm.
You had to pay for a bath.
Hmm.
And these guys were, but you watch this movie, and everybody looks like they just came out of their costume fitting.
Yeah.
Everybody's clean. And you look at Greg Peck, and I mean, he is clean shaven.
Oh yeah, he
And
just rode for like
yeah, at the
two
very beginning,
hours.
we see him riding across,
Yeah,
Monument
his
Valley.
satchel is dusty.
Yeah.
He's not.
Um, I think they painted his mustache, but it is a production. I will say that it's the story is really what props it up.
Right, and
It really, really,
the story and the acting help you get over how this doesn't look anything like it would have in reality.
yeah.
Um,
It's the standard Western, at which you have to walk into the bar, and the piano player is playing Camptown Races.
right, and it's
That happens in this movie.
yeah, the whole the boardwalk. There's the dirt street and the
Yeah.
boardwalk sidewalks, and the
Mm.
church at one end, and the big house on the other. It's like every other Western town. It's like the town in Yojimbo. It's like, you know,
Or Blazing
or
Saddles.
Blazing Saddles, or High Noon, or
Well, that's the end of this suit.
yeah. So
But I mean, it's a movie of its time.
it is.
That the temperature of the movie, in terms of the subject matter and how it's played out and how it works, that's what's great about it.
Right. And I think I gravitated to this when I was younger, and over time have begun to appreciate it more, is that this is one of the earliest westerns I can think of that actively tries to demystify the gunfight and say
Right.
violence is bad.
Yeah.
You shouldn't go around shooting people.
Right.
It's one of the first westerns that really deheroized the gunfighter.
Yeah.
So you think in a movie called The Gunfighter, you're going to go in, you're going to follow this guy taking people out, and
Yeah.
just he's the best, and we're going to see him be the best. He's going to be awesome, and we're going to love
But
him.
because it's Gregory Peck, you're not. No, it's not
Exactly.
going to
Yeah.
happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
But let's talk about next week.
Yeah.
Next week, I have chosen a
This
buried
is-
treasure. I love this movie. It's called Barbarossa. It's from 1982, and it stars
In a phenomenal performance.
Willie Nelson
He is so good in that.
and Gary Busey before he lost his marbles.
Well, yeah, I think that's before his teeth backed up into his brain and Because his teeth are actually actively smaller in this than they
Yeah.
do now. Um, this is still when, just a few years off of Buddy Holly, when he was,
Yeah.
still a competent and sentient human being.
And this is Willie Nelson right off of Honeysuckle Rose,
Yeah.
where that movie introduced On the Road Again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really good lived-in Western.
It is.
He plays an outlaw, and he hooks up with this farm boy. And I saw it years ago, and it kind of got lost. I remember at the studio at the time, it was getting all kinds of good reviews, but nobody was going to see it because they didn't promote it. They didn't advertise it, so they pulled it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Siskel and Ebert sitting there going, we would like to see this movie.
Right.
Wrote letters to the studio. We want to see this movie. And they saw the movie and they loved it. And they were like, shame on you for pulling this movie
Mm-hmm.
that's so good
Mm-hmm.
and just burying it.
I will say
And-
that as I was watching it, it felt like a Sam Peckinpah movie was trying to break out and never really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it had flashes of like Pat Garrett and the Billy the Kid and the
It's
what was that Charlton Heston Sam Peckinpah movie? Major Dundee. That's
Major Dundee.
That's not a good.
And it is directed by Fred Skepsey, who is an Australian director, who I think he's best known in this country for a movie that's called A Cry in the Dark. That Meryl Streep movie where she plays Lindy, is it Lindy Chamberlain?
I had
Who's-
never heard of him before I saw this.
Her child was, this is a real life case, her child was taken out of her tent during a camping trip and was basically eaten alive.
Yikes.
And because she didn't present herself as being emotional or, the proper, everybody thought she did it. And she went to jail for 8
So
years.
it was like a Gone Girl situation.
Yeah. It's where you get that really tacky meme, Dingoes Ate My Baby.
Yeah.
But
that's where it comes from, right?
Yeah, that's where that comes from. But he's an Australian director. He also made a movie called The Chant of Jimmy Blacksmith, which I'm going to put on this show because that is a really phenomenal film. It's about an Aborigine kid who's charged for a murder he didn't commit.
Also from the late 70s, early 80s?
Believe 1979.
Okay.
But
I can kind of peg where we're going to be watching when you say, I've picked a movie because you have been stuck in this 5-year period, like 78 to 83, all year.
started going through. I started in late watching movies from about late 1978. I think I started around the time of A Wedding, the Robert Altman picture.
Mm-hmm.
And just started watching all these movies that I've either forgotten about or haven't seen yet.
And it's been like 6 or 7 months of this.
Yeah.
So every time you're like, well, I have a movie that I want to talk about. I'm like, okay, so 78, 79, 80,
is it from
81,
78,
82, or
79,
83?
80, 81, 82, or 83?
So
I'm so excited because I'm watching these movies and reviewing them on my site. And I'm just about to reach Return of the Jedi. That's where I am in my little journey. I want to see how far I can get. I just saw the horror movie The Hunger. Boy, that was a piece of shit.
that was
It's full of David
Yeah.
Bowie. It was a Tony Scott movie.
yeah. He's a vampire.
It's a great looking movie, but boy, it's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's like it just doesn't move
Well,
at all. And
It's Tony Scott from the early 80s. I mean,
yeah.
but
I think Roger Ebert referred to it as agonizingly awful.
so that's what we have next week. And the week after, we're continuing Westerns. We're going to talk about the friction between High Noon and Rio Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
These two movies have gotten the reputation in the Western genre. It's almost like a Star Wars, Star Trek, Keaton
Mm-hmm.
Chaplin kind of a rivalry.
Yeah.
Because High Noon came out in 1952,
Mm-hmm.
got Gary Cooper his Oscar.
Yeah.
Um, but it's about a lawman who is trying to get deputies and help to prevent somebody from who just got out of jail exacting revenge on him.
One
Basically.
last score
Right.
kind of thing.
So he wants to stay in town because he figures it's his duty, and he also figures if they don't find him there, they will hunt him down.
Right.
And he just wants this.
And he wants to go off and live with Grace Kelly.
And who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't? You know.
So that movie was seen very much as socialist propaganda. It was used against. It was kind of saying it was a feminized man because he was asking
Yeah.
for help.
God forbid.
He was saved by a woman.
Yeah.
You know, so Howard Hawks and John Wayne saw High Noon and were incensed. So six
So they
years
made Rio
later,
Bravo.
they made Rio Bravo
Mhm.
with a group, a sheriff, his deputy, a kid, that are guarding a guy. The same situation. People are coming into town to get this guy out of jail in that situation. And people keep coming in. How can we help you? How can we help you? And they go home.
Yeah.
We don't want your help. We don't need your help. We don't want you to get hurt. We're
Right.
the law. We will deal with it.
We'll
So this
handle it.
really like masculine man's man kind of thing. And like Star Trek and Star Wars and like Keaton and Chaplin, I love both.
Hmm.
So I want to talk about both.
Yeah.
more
Little
so
twofer.
more so the friction between the fans and the differences between the movies and the movies themselves, because the movies should actually be spoken about in episodes of their own.
Yeah.
Because they're both great films.
Mhm.
So that's what we have for July. Um, we're still tossing around August. I'm still thinking about doing heists,
Mhm.
but not Ocean's 11's type Rick and
With
Morty
a little help from
with a
some
little.
old
Yeah,
friends.
I'm not going to do any of those. Although I can't say that I won't get we're going to do this one big score and then we retire movies. That one
Mhm.
might actually that might happen.
God, I hate that. You don't know how much I hate that. I'm going to do one last score. I'm 2 days from retirement. As soon as we nail Mendoza,
I'm retired. Yeah.
I'm gonna retire. I just christened a boat called the Live Forever. You know,
I've gotten a subscription to Immortals Monthly. You know,
yeah.
I'm ready to go.
I just my subscription to Immortal Life. Just you know,
Yep. So that's what we have on the horizon. Some fun stuff. Um, you can find all of our back episodes at the podbaydoorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can listen to us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit the like, subscribe, make sure you get the notifications. Follow us on Twitter so you know exactly when our episodes drop. That's pod_bay is our handle there. Same handle at Patreon, where we are working on on another exclusive, but because of scheduling and things, we're not quite sure where that's going to fall. So,
right. We'll tell you more about it later.
Right. So, we'll also have that coming up in the hopefully near future. I think that about wraps everything up here for us. We thank you very much for listening, and the pod bay doors are now closed.
The mission has been completed.
to